So Thursday morning, I went out surfing early in the morning with one of the guys that comes to the service. And while he was busy surfing, I was busy looking out at the horizon. And all of a sudden, a humpback whale jumped high enough that sitting on my surfboard, I could actually see the whale jump and the big splash afterwards. And I sat there going, this is the coolest thing ever. And then all of a sudden you could see it coming into the surface and blowing air and all the water flying out. And I just was mesmerized by this experience when one of the other guys that I surf with said, "You won't believe my experience yesterday." To which I turned and we started chit-chatting. He said, "I realized yesterday that I'd run out of toilet paper. And I decided that it was after surfing I'd go to Costco." This was Wednesday. And I got to Costco and it was crazy in the middle of the day, busy. And I go to the one aisle that I need, the toilet paper aisle, and there is nothing there. There is no toilet paper, there are no paper towels, there's no wipes, there is nothing. And people are freaking out. And he said, "Do you know why there's no toilet paper?" And most of these guys I surf with clearly don't watch the news. They went, "No, why?" And he said, "There's a virus. There's a virus that's going to kill people, apparently, and everybody needs toilet paper to survive it." I don't know if you wrap yourself up in it or what the deal is, but they began to have this conversation. After he left Costco, he realized that he was missing something that must be happening in these islands. And he went home and Googled what's wrong, or something like that, and it came up with coronavirus. And he started freaking out about what this was and if he was going to survive this, and where would he find toilet paper. He did share that he found a single roll of toilet paper at Long's Drugs store. That was the only place he could find toilet paper. And he was like, what is going on in our culture that we're hoarding and doing all this stuff? Well, of course, Friday, it comes out, thanks be to God, through Hawaii News Now's mobile app, that the first official case of coronavirus is on the island. This week, my inbox has been full of the number one topic, coronavirus in the church. And through this process has been the questions of, am I safe to come to church? What are we doing with our preschool and adult, or the adult daycare? How are we safeguarding your well-being? And so this month is, we're right now in the season of Lent, and today we're going to talk about the gift of covenanted relationships, in other words, marriage. But because I've had so many people reaching out and sharing, quite honestly, that they wouldn't be returning back to church until after coronavirus is gone, I feel like we need to have a conversation about where we are and how do we respond as faithful people. As you know, we did the chicken wings, right? It's way more fun. It feels like, childhood where you did the dance and I forgot how the song actually goes because it's been a while. But there are real concerns, and I don't want to make light of the concerns. But at the last service, the guy that sits in the very front row every week, he is one of the leaders of the health department. And so before worship started, I went up to him and said, "This is what I'm doing." And afterwards, I went to him and said, "Now grade me." And he said, "Thank you." He said, "The craze is crazier than you could dream of, and it's not based in fact or reality. And so let's have a conversation about how do we faithfully live in the midst of something like a coronavirus and actually deal with our faithful response to those that are in fear, some of whom may be sitting among us today, and certainly are worrying about this." Deal? We'll deal with marriage another day. It's been around forever. It will continue to be around long after today. So last night, Pastor Brandon and I met yesterday, and we were talking about what to do today. And I had texted Margaret and Brandon on Friday and said, I'm thinking we should shift gears and talk about coronavirus because, the Bible's very clear about coronavirus. It's not. But what I'm getting of a lot of people is this overwhelming concern about their life safety. And when we deal with life safety, it's certainly concerning for us to deal with in a way that is honest and truthful and factual. So to put it in context for you, the infectiousness of this coronavirus. According to yesterday's reports at 8 p.m. last night, Hawaii Standard Time, COVID-19, which we call coronavirus, has infected approximately 102,472 people worldwide. There's been 340 cases of infection in the United States of America, and only one so far confirmed in Hawaii. Compare that with the flu, this year's flu season. So far, the estimates, and they won't have the final until much later, is estimated that right now, just in the United States of America, 34 million to 49 million people have had the flu. So in America, 340 cases of coronavirus, 34 to 49 million cases of the flu. Anybody freaking out about the flu? How many of you got a flu shot this year? How many of you had the flu this year? A few of you, right? Deaths from coronavirus and the flu. Approximately 3,491 deaths reported worldwide, 14 deaths in the U.S. as of last night. The flu this year, so far, just in the U.S., somewhere between 20,000 and 52,000 deaths related to the flu. 14 deaths from coronavirus, 20,000 to 52,000 deaths from the flu. If I was like my friends surfing and hadn't heard anything about this, I would have thought that everyone is dying from coronavirus. And part of what we need to do is take a step back and take a big, deep breath and ask, why are we such in a craze as a society and as a people about coronavirus? Because if the facts are that you are more likely exponentially to die from the flu, why aren't we talking about the flu? Because the chance of us getting the flu every year is about 1% of us will catch the flu. My daughter had it this year. Luckily, it didn't spread through the house because we have this amazing invention called Tamiflu. Have you ever taken Tamiflu? It's God's gift to humanity, right? Or scientists' gift to humanity. Tamiflu, we know about the flu is that every year it comes. Every year we know that a flu epidemic is going to strike, and sometime between January and March it's going to reach its peak and then decline. And every year, tens of thousands of people die from the flu. And yet we don't freak out about it. Why? Because we know this happens every year. But coronavirus is new, this strand. And there's much unknown about it, which creates a fear within us. And it spreads throughout the culture that it is incredibly dangerous, and we have to take every precaution. And the reality is that the unknown is always fearful. And so we start playing into what might be, which isn't always truth. And then you start researching coronavirus, like I did yesterday. And there's one scientist who's an expert in epidemiology, and he said that 70% of humanity will contract coronavirus. 70%? Does that mean 30% of us will be left? No. It means that about 1% or less of people are going to have some kind of sickness related to a passing, like the flu. On the other side of the spectrum are scientists of the same field that are saying, we're blowing this way out of proportion, and we need to bring it down to a normative conversation. Because we're creating so much fear that it's not only affecting people's well-being, it's affecting everything about our lives. If you follow the stock market, how did it do this week? It felt like a roller coaster ride, right? It dove, and then it rose, and then it dove, and it wasn't just like these little ones. It's huge. Why? Because people are freaking out. And so what we as a community of faith have to ask is, what is a faithful response in the face of fear and unknownness of our lives? Well, I've also spent some time listening to the Christian circles. I love Christianity because we have lots of cousins that are just weird. Can I just say that out loud? We have some cousins of our faith that I wonder, how can we be related? For example, I've heard some speculate that this is God's punishment to humanity. God is punishing us with the coronavirus. I don't think that's true. I've heard others say that if you just pray enough, God will protect you. Case study, church in South Korea. They prayed and everybody got sick. Prayer is good and we should do that. But the reality is that viruses, they don't listen to prayers. I've heard others declare that it's time to bunker down, that we need to hoard our goods because Armageddon is at hand. What is Armageddon? Jesus is coming back. And get ready because it's getting ready to get bad. I'm on a plane to Jerusalem if that's true, so that way I can be at the Golden Gates, first in line to get to the Golden Gates Palace of Heaven. I don't think doomsday is the reality either. One that I heard this week that really struck me, and I think we have to ask ourselves, is a question about how does this actually affect the poor and the marginalized and those that are at great risk of unhealth. For example, according to United Way, Aloha United Way, in their ALICE study, majority of our population in Hawaii are one paycheck away from homelessness, one paycheck away from disaster. If they contract coronavirus and they're out for 2 weeks, they literally have nothing to fall back on, and they are in deep, deep trouble. And so for those of us that have great health insurance, for those of us that get paid for sick leave, for those of us that are benefiting from the jobs in the communities that we serve, be thankful. But we have to be realistic about people in our own congregation that are terrified not of getting sick, but of losing their homes, or of making choices about, do I feed my children or do I pay the hospital bill? These are real issues that affect real people that I know in this church today. And the question of something like this and the craze that's been created is, how is it going to affect those among us that are working in the service industries, that are taking a beating right now? As we see just last week, a 12% decline in international arrivals. In 1 week, 12%. United Airlines announced that they're cutting 10% of their flights to Hawaii. What we're seeing throughout the industry, if you listen to the news or pay attention to the paper, is that the economy is getting ready to take an enormous hit here. And people among us are not immune to it. We as a church are not immune to this. The last time our stock market went crazy was in the last quarter of 2018. What we saw, I went away for vacation. I came back so excited because we were going to finish the year strong, because December is the best month of the year. In 2018, December was one of the worst months we've ever had. Because when people get fearful, they start hanging on to everything. And they go into protection mode. And what we saw here was that people stopped giving. When you all stop giving, it directly affects everything that we do. And I understand the fear and the concern, and it's needed with reason. But the reality for us, and I'm not trying to be a fearmonger, I'm not trying to create some kind of panic here. But if we see what's happening in the society among us in Hawaii and the economics of what's happening continue, it's going to hit our church hard. And the only way that we have to correct it is either use up the endowment or look at our personnel costs. Those are our two choices. And for me, it's concerning. I'm not in a panic. It's concerning. Because the reality for me is I don't want to see people sick. I don't want to see people suffer. I don't want to see families of our congregation deciding whether or not they're going to move into their car or someone else's house because they can no longer afford to live alone. This is the real stuff of what this craziness is creating. And so what is our response as a community of faith? Well, for me, if you can imagine, I go to the scriptures and look at Jesus. Jesus seems to have a lot of really good things to say. And for me, I have this belief that God has called us to overcome that which seems to overwhelm us. So I want you to take a deep breath and let go of the anxiety, the stress, the fears, the worries, all of this stuff, and listen to the words of Jesus to you. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you'll eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more important than food, and the body more important than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to their life? Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about your clothes? See how the lilies of the field grow? They do not labor or spin, yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all of his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not be much more clothe you, O you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the unfaithful run after all of those things. But your heavenly Father knows that you need them. So seek first God's kingdom and God's righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to their life? You see, to me, worry is a state of being. It's a choice of how we respond to the stresses of our lives. Worry is something that we're prone to and we often run to, but it doesn't have to be our normative experience of life. You see, worry and fear have a chemical reaction that happens inside of your body. It induces this drive within you to fight or to flee. It's a natural response that through evolution and all these eons of people, we've learned how to survive. And so what I've been watching the last couple of weeks, and especially the last few days in Hawaii, is that we have gotten into ourselves of this extreme worry nature and fearfulness, that if you get coronavirus, you're going to die. One of the heads of the health department of Hawaii sat with me after worship and explained, that is as far from the truth as possible. Most likely, when they figure out and start testing broadly, less than 1% of people in the world will die from coronavirus. In fact, he said most people that have it now and have had it never knew that they had it. They thought it was the cold, or they thought they had the flu. The reality for us is that the amping up of this stuff has created panic among us. And it hasn't helped us at all. And so what do? Well, simple. Number one, turn off the nonstop TV coverage. Just stop it already, right? If nothing else, if you haven't figured out, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, CNBC, all of them function because advertisers pay their bills. They need you to watch their shows. This is about finance, not truth. And what they're doing is they're creating a hysteria in our culture that is creating chaos everywhere else. And so please turn off the TV. Go outside and look at a rainbow. Go to the beach and go swimming. Go take a walk or pick up the Bible and read it. It's really interesting. And it's really good for your soul. But you don't need to watch day in and day out what the pundits are saying and projecting. Number two, follow the suggestions by the experts, not the friend that posted something on Facebook. Go to CDC, WHO, and Hawaii Health Department and find out that they all are saying the same thing. It's really simple. You ready? Wash your hands. What? Wash your hands? Boom! No way! Literally, Joe sat there and said to me, if everyone would just wash their hands, no big deal. Isn't that a good idea all the time? To wash our hands. In the back, you'll see these hand sanitizing stations around the... We have those out now so that you can keep your hands sanitized. But literally, they're like, just wash your hands, soap and water. If you don't have that, do hand sanitizer. It's good. It's easy. Don't rub your face with your hands. If you're sick, stay home. What? They just figured that out? It is so simple. If you're sick, stay home. Common sense type stuff that they've been saying forever. They're saying again. Number 3, take time to reflect on the gift that God has given you. It's called your life. Reflect on this gift that's been given to you. If you're home for 2 weeks in quarantine, you got a lot of time with yourself, right? Contemplate what God is doing in your life. Pray. Call your friends that you haven't talked to in a while on the phone. Do things that give you life instead of things that are going to take away your life. Lastly, be aware of the impact that this is having on the poor and the marginalized and the groups that are serving them. Be cognizant that this is real stuff of real life of people that are suffering. Not because they're sick, but because of the craze that's been created around this. For those that are in our community that are feeling like you're one paycheck away from disaster, we as a church, I oversee a fund that I can help you all. Brandon and I talked about it, and we use this fund sparingly because it's an opportunity for us to help those that are in great need. Right now, we know it's coming. And so if you're one of those people, it's called the Pastor Discretionary Fund. And so it's my discretion how to use it, and I use it to help people that are struggling in life. And so if that's you, give me a call. Come by the church if you're healthy. If you're not, just call on the phone. It still works. We can chat. Because we're here to support each other. Our life is to do life together. And we don't want anyone to suffer through this needlessly. And so our hope is that what we do is we respond to the craze of our culture with faith. God is with us. We can stop the spread of this disease by doing the simple things that we're told by the experts, like washing hands, and if you're sick, staying home, and not hugging and kissing right now until this thing goes away, and to be realistic about the reality that the flu is far worse right now. And as Joe said to me, if we would have said the deadly flu virus this year, we would have seen the same craze. But the reality is that we just need to bring it down a bit. Take a breath. Realize that we're not in peril. And those communities that are at peril, like nursing homes and retirement communities and our population, over 80 of what they're saying, that aren't healthy, we need to make sure that we're watching out for them and caring for them. But let's walk in faith. Because who by worrying can add a single hour to your life? May you rest in God's goodness today. Amen.